Call to order the City Council regular meeting for the City of Wyoming, Minnesota, January 3rd, 2023. Let the record reflect we do have a quorum. Member Luker, Member Onstad, Member Schilling, Member Yeager, and Mayor Iverson are present. We ask that you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by veteran and Councilmember Schilling.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we're going to do things just a slightly different tonight because we have a lot of people here. We are going to swear in our elected officials. We have our annual meeting, and then after that is our open forum. And our open forum to start with is actually going to be for people who don't wish to speak on anything that is actually on our agenda. So a little bit different. You will have time to speak if there is something on your agenda. Nobody marked that they wanted to speak, so I'm hoping that's still kind of the case, but we can always go to a plan B on that. Okay, so we're going to start with the swearing in of elected officials. Mr. Linwood, are you? And then we do ask that everybody really speak into the mic tonight, please.
So this is the annual. We have two council members tonight that have run for election. We have both council member Dennis Schilling and council member Claire Luger. They'll be sworn in tonight for the term of office from 2023 to 2026.
Yep.
So, and then if you could just repeat after me, Councilmember
Raise
Schilling.
my right hand, right?
Yes, please.
Yep.
I, your name,
I, Dennis Schilling,
do solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States,
do solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and to discharge faithfully the duties
and to discharge faithfully the duties
of the office of City Council Member of the City of Wyoming
of the office of City Council Member of the City of Wyoming
to the best, to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
So, thank you. All right. I, your name,
I, Claire Luger. Oh boy, that's hot.
do solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States,
Do solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and to discharge faithfully the duties
and to discharge faithfully the duties
of the office of City Council Member of the City of Wyoming, Minnesota,
of office of City Council Member to the City of Minnesota,
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I just want to say welcome back to our council members. So excited to have you back on council. All right, the annual meeting, number one on our agenda is designate official newspaper for 2023, Resolution 230101. Mr. Linwood.
Council members, this is a part of our annual meeting and statutorily necessary for the council to select and designate an official paper for the 2023 for the City of Wyoming. The City of Wyoming has utilized the Forest Lake Times for this in the past. We did receive both, if you will, submittals from both the Forest Lake Times and the Chisago County Press. So at this time, that would be up to the council if they have any other questions or to move forward discussion or pass the resolution.
I'd like to start with discussion on this. I actually think that Wyoming has been its own island in terms of the newspaper with the Forest Lake Times. I think that we actually fit better in the Chisago County Press with the other cities that are within Chisago County. I also believe that they have a very good rapport with us, and they actually report fair and unbiased news. So I would like us to see to go with the Chisago County Press. I know it's a little more expensive, but I think that there's more people that read that. And we are then a part of Chisago County with all the other cities that we work together with. All right, Member Schilling?
I will actually second that, Mayor. My biggest thing is Chisago County Press is in our county. That's part of our cities. Forest Lake is outside of our county, so I was actually very interested in moving forward with them versus Forest Lake Times for that sole purpose.
Okay, thank you. Member Yeager?
What's the price difference? I
Um,
mean, for the same print and lines per, they're a bit higher than
Sure,
Forest
for
Lake.
the Forest Lake Times, it's $5.95 per column, with 7-point type and 9 lines per inch, and then for the Chisago County Press, it's $8 per column inch with 7-inch type and 9 lines per inch. So it's the same type of font per se in print. You're just looking at a difference of about $2.05 per line.
How much more will that cost us?
Annually, I don't think we do significant based on our number of publications, but there will be a cost. I guess I haven't done that calculation to regards to what we did for publications last year versus,
Because when I saw it in the substantially more in the letter, I don't have a problem with the Forest Lake Times because Wyoming tends to be a suburb of Forest Lake, and I don't find that their reporting is generally that biased.
Thank you. Member Lugar?
I think, I kind of agree with the county identity, which I prefer, instead of considering ourselves a suburb of Forest Lake. We are Wyoming, we are in Chisago County, and certainly we have our own identity, and are serviced by, and work with different county agencies in Chisago, and so I'm comfortable moving ahead with the Chisago County Press.
Okay, thank you. And Member Onstad?
I would agree with that. I would agree with that also, in that the Chisago County Times be more directed towards the rest of the county, and that's who we relate to.
All right, so I would like to make a motion that we designate the Chisago County Press for a resolution. Do I need to read that 230101 if I'm changing it, or how does that work?
you can just, if you want to make the motion just for that resolution
Yep.
to designate, then the staff can update that resolution for necessary signing at the end of the meeting.
Okay, great. So I would like to make a motion to designate our official paper as the Chisago County Press. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Member Schilling. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? No?
I said aye.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right, it does move. Number 2, designate official depository for city funds for 2023. Mr. Linwood.
Yes, council members, this is necessary, once again, to state statute 427.01. It's necessary for the city of Wyoming to designate its financial institutions for the annual year. On the resolution that is presented to you, we have the First State Bank of Wyoming, Prudent Man Advisors, PMA, RBC, Wealth Management, and then the 4M Fund. This is remaining the same as it has last year, and where the city of Wyoming currently banks and does its financial investments. I can stand for any questions.
Okay, Member Lugar, any questions?
No questions.
Member Onstad.
No questions.
Member Schilling.
No questions at this time?
Member Yeager.
No questions.
All right, we need a motion to approve 230102, designating the official depository for city funds for 2023. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion by Member Onstad. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Lugar. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. Number 3, designate electronic fund transfers and payments for claims, resolution 230103. Mr. Linwood.
Mayor, members of council, this is a designation that we recently adopted based on recommendation from our auditor. It's just an electronic fund transfer procedure and payment of claims and resolutions. It's also necessary to give me authorization to pay or transfer funds electronically prior to the city council approval. Essentially, that business is always brought back in front of the council, but sometimes there's necessary things if we receive payments from the state or other things in regards to some of the federal funds that we received in the past. So simply just allowing me to do so, but then ultimately going to the council for final approval at the next available council meeting.
Okay. Questions from Member Schilling?
No questions.
Member Yeager?
No questions.
Member Lugar?
No questions.
Member Onstad?
No questions.
All right, we need a motion to approve resolution 230103. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion to approve by Member Onstad. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Lugar. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. Number 4, elect an acting mayor to serve in the absence of the mayor during 2023 based on Minnesota Statute 412.121. Mr. Linwood.
Yes, it is, per just your statement, Mayor, it is necessary under Minnesota State statute to select a acting mayor and potential potential of your absence during the year. So at this point in time, we need the council to either make a motion or have discussion in regards to someone to provide that role as acting mayor in 2024.
Okay, I'd like to make the motion to ask Commissioner Lugar, Member Lugar, to be acting mayor in my absence.
I'll second that.
Okay, any questions on that? Will you say yes? Sure you are. Sure. You do such a great job when I'm gone. Okay, any questions? Is there anybody else who would like to put their name in? Seeing none, we have a first and a second. Did I first that? I think I did. Yeah, okay, if we have a second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, number 5, review council appointments to boards, commissions, committees, and boards of trustees of Fire Department Volunteer Relief Association. Resolution 230104, Mr. Linwood.
Yes, Mayor, members of the council, this is once again an annual item as in regards to having the mayor go through and appoint the different council members to different boards, and whether it's our planning commissions or representatives through other sewer commissions, etc. Also to reappoint our individuals for our different boards and commissions, being that planning commission, park advisory commission, or EDA if we have some. This year we do have 1 planning commission member and we have 3 park advisory commissions to reappoint, none for our EDA. With that, I can stand for any questions.
Okay, I do know we probably need to change the Joint Park Planning Commission to Member Onstad, unless we want to continue to have Member Lugar in that. But typically, it's usually the Park Advisory liaison who does the Joint Park Planning Commission. Any questions or comments on that?
I'd be happy to do it.
Okay, Claire, you find that?
Yep, absolutely.
Anybody else? Okay, so we need, let's see. Do we have everybody good with the letters that were sent out approving of commissions? No changes to anything? Okay, first of all, I would just like to say thank you to our boards and commissions, commissioners who have, again, applied to be part of our commissions, because it's very, very important that we have volunteers to do that. So, Mr. Spangler, I'm looking at you. So, thank you. All right, so we do need a motion to approve with the change of Brett Onstad being in the Joint Park Planning Commission instead of Claire Lugar. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve by Member Schilling. Do we have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Thank
I'll
you.
second. You
Second
firsted.
by Member
I
Lugar.
didn't finish.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. Number 6, establishing the 2023 regular meeting nights of the City Council of the Wyoming, Minnesota, and budget calendar for 2024 budget. Mr. Linwood, that's always a fun calendar to approve.
Certainly, Mayor and members of the council. This is simply staff and Mr. Sachs and myself going through our normal regular meetings for the schedule for 2023. You will note that there's been 2 changes. One for moving our normally scheduled meeting on July 4th to July 5th due to the 4th of July holiday. And then secondly, on August 2nd, 2023, due to National Night Out being held on Tuesday, August 1st. So we have those 2 changes within the regular scheduled council meetings. And then also our 2024 budget process calendar, where we've identified the timelines for the necessary work to be done, including those council work sessions as part of that budget process.
Okay. Member Lugar, do you have any comments or questions or any changes?
Nope.
Okay. Member Onstad?
No questions.
Member Schilling?
No questions.
Member Yeager?
No questions.
All right, then we need a motion to approve the regular meeting nights of the City Council of the City of Wyoming in our budget calendar for 2024. I'll make the first. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Schilling. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. Number 7 on our agenda for the annual meeting, set annual fees for city services for 2023. Resolution 230105. Mr. Weck, are you taking this, or Mr. Linwood?
Mr. Sachs will take this.
Mr. Sachs. Well, hi, Mr. Sachs.
Hello,
you.
thank you, Madam Mayor,
Thank you.
council members. So as part of the annual meeting, we have to set the annual fees. So this year in the memo, we noted several changes. I'm not gonna read through them. We had our basic utility updates per our utility rate study. And then just a couple of changes, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Okay, let's see, Member Onstead, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Member Schilling?
No questions.
Member Yeager?
Well, what do we get for our $200 dangerous dog fee?
We have been charging a fee up to this point, it just was not on the fee schedule. It's allowable up to, by statute, up to $500. I reached out to other municipalities around the area. North Branch was at $250. Lakes area was going to implement, they were still deciding at this point. But it is a fee to allow us to, because we do maintain checks on them. It provides us, it gives us that, it's one more thing for them to become in compliance for
Okay,
keeping
but
that dog.
I asked, what do you do to justify $200 fee besides check with the other cities to make sure they're charging as much?
Sure. We make contact with the dangerous dog owners periodically and annually to make sure that they maintain the insurance policy that's required. They maintain the rabies vaccination requires, and the posting that's posted outside the residence as well.
Okay.
Okay.
My second question is on the mailbox assembly fee. I see that the fee has doubled. It said due to the increased cost of materials, but did the cost of the materials actually double? Because, for instance, water meters only increased 20%.
Yeah, correct. Mailbox post did double in price, but we order a large quantity at a time. And so they probably weren't ordered for over 3 years. And so now that this new order, the invoice was $150
Oh,
for the
okay.
longer extension ones and like $95 for the shorter ones. So we just come up with $150 to add some money for delivery and all that.
Okay, that's all I got.
All right, Member Luger?
No questions.
Okay. Mr. Linwood or Mr. Sachs, for the residents that will be watching that are on City Sewer and Water, just a brief explanation of how we set the fees, why we sent the fees over the last 3 years, that plan that we go through, and how we work that and plan it so it's not all at one time.
Sure. Essentially, as Mayor Iverson stated, we do, every 5 years, we actually do a utility rate study, and we use a consultant to go through, and that's basically an assessment of all our infrastructure that we need to maintain, operate, and take care of, and that's all of our water sewer pipes, all the necessary compliances we have from the Minnesota Department of Health, and all the necessary work that needs to be done in regards to our lift stations and ensuring that when you flush the toilet or when you turn your tap that you're actually receiving those services. So there's a lot of different components that go into it, as far as from our capital equipment to our wages to the maintenance of that infrastructure. We have been aggressive in the last 5 years in regards to our lift stations, getting them all up to speed, and also I guess a 21st century you could say, and getting them all into a SCADA warning system, so if there is a backup, if there is things like that, we can take care of that. We are right now going to be going through in 2023 a mass meter change out for our water meters, as they are coming to end of life as well, and those will we'll have more information on that coming out to residents in our winter newsletter, but it'll offer residents a lot more ability to review those water meters and to provide checks and make sure that if there are any issues, including leaks, that those are detected early and often. So really give a lot of availability to the resident, not only just the city to be able to look at it, but the actual owner to look at it. So, but we do those about every 5 years, and that's when we also, the last component that you'll see in our fee schedule is what you pay for your water and sewer, and we look at the affordability, different things like that. We look at different communities, other things, but really to ensure that we're going through that process and we're maintaining that system and charging appropriately to do so. So we'll do another one in 2023 that'll set the rates for 2024 to 2027. So council will begin that exercise probably midway through the year.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that. All right, if there are no other questions, we need a motion to approve Resolution 230105, set the annual fees for the city services for 2023.
So moved.
We have a motion to approve by Member Onstad. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Schilling. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. All right, we're going to move on to more of our regular meeting, which is the open forum. It's an opportunity for members of the public to address the city council on items that are not today on the current agenda. Items requiring council action may be deferred to staff or boards and commissions for research and future council agendas if appropriate. You will be limited to 3 minutes, and we ask that you conduct yourself in a professional, courteous manner and refrain from the use of profanity. Failure to abide by this policy may result in the loss of your privilege to speak. Do we have anyone here today that would like to speak on something that is not on our agenda? Seeing nobody? Okay. We're going to go ahead and move on to number 8 on our agenda is consider approving the minutes of the regular meeting of the Wyoming, Minnesota City Council for December 20th, 2022. If there are no questions or comments, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve by member Luker. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by member Schilling. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. Consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda will be adopted with one motion. However, council members may request individual items to be pulled from the consent agenda for discussion and action if they choose. Consent agenda is number 9, 10, 11, and 12. 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Does any member wish to pull an item from the consent agenda for further discussion? Seeing none, we need a motion to approve the consent agenda number 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13.
So moved.
We have a motion to approve by member Schilling. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by member Luker. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. Number 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18 is acknowledgement receipts of reports of officer, boards, commissions, and department heads. Does any of our members want to pull an item for further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on to number 19, communications. Number 19 is MDH radium test results. Mr. Sachs, are you going to go over this?
Mr. Almgeld.
Mr. Almgeld is going to. Thank you.
So this year, the radium, combined radium and about from the 3 wells have actually lowered in each well. And again, we'll have a letter that will, MOA agreement that will be coming to council later now to limit the use of well 3, which it is, not out of compliance, but you have to mix the water from well 3. And just so for your general knowledge, we don't run well 3 now. It's programmed with SCADA, so that if something did happen and we needed water in an emergency, it would turn on. But for this year, we have not ran the well, and that I believe that's why the combined radium is so much lower, because the well has not been running.
Okay, great. Questions from council. We'll start with member Yeager.
But we have adequate water without the well. We have an adequate amount of water without running well 3.
Correct, we have large tower.
Okay.
All right. Member Luker.
No questions.
Member Onstad.
Do we need to run that well every once in a while to make sure that the machine parts are working or anything like that?
Correct, we do. We flush the hydrant right by the well 3, and then that's when we do our sampling and testing, which is monthly.
Okay.
All right. Member Schilling.
No questions.
And I have none either. So thank you for that communication. We're going to move on to old business, number 20 to our agenda. I just want to let the council know that we are going to take a roll call on this vote after discussions. All right, number 20, to consider resolution 22-12-129, a resolution approving a conditional use permit, CUP, for the master plan of a planned unit development, otherwise known as a PUD, C-220003, Katy Glen, location Goodview Avenue between 256th and 258th Street. Application Prabuddha Enterprises, property ID number 21.10140.00. And we're gonna go with staff report first. And then once we get staff report, can everybody hear me okay? It's up kind of loud, we're getting some
There's
feedback.
a little backup.
Okay. Okay, we're good? Just when I talk, we get feedback?
I can get started. Mr. Black starts the report, I'll go check the system.
Okay, all right, so Mr. Weck, you're gonna start with,
Madam Mayor and council members, this was tabled at the last council meeting. It'll have to be taken off the table by a motion and a second and a vote before it can be acted on. Mr. Pabuda Enterprises is requesting preliminary plat approval and a conditional use permit for a planned unit development. There's 39 lots that are being proposed, and one outlot that will contain the green space and the drainage ponds. Planning Commission is recommending approval of both the conditional use permit, the planned unit development master plan, and the preliminary plat with the conditions listed in the staff report and the resolutions.
okay, Mr. Lennon, am I understanding that we have to take it off the table?
Correct. First, we need a vote to take it off the table, then you can consider the resolution
Okay.
As it has been tabled.
Okay, so we need a motion to take resolution 22-12129 off the table. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion by member Schilling. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by member Luger. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so I think so you spoke. I think what I'm gonna do is, should we have residents ask questions? Or do we wanna, what's gonna be the most efficient?
I think it's probably appropriate to let the residents ask questions, and then
Okay.
we'll turn it back to council if you have any further questions after that. But we can start with the
Okay.
ability for residents if they want to come up and speak.
Perfect. Okay, so I don't see anybody who's saying they wanted to speak on any of this item, which is fine. But if you do have, we had this 2 weeks ago. If you came up and spoke 2 weeks ago, we've heard that. If there's anybody new who would like to speak, or you have something new to add to what you want to say to this particular development, please come up, state your name and your address. And we will try to keep it in that 3 minutes if we can, please.
Hello, my name is Richard Spratt. My address is 6545 255th Street, Wyoming. I just had a comment on it. So the last time I was here, they were saying that they're removing over 600 trees and putting in 39 houses, and they said that it will not change the appearance of what's over there now. I want to know, how are they going to sit there and tell us that that's not going to change the way it looks?
All right, thank you. Anyone else like to come up? Please come on up, state your name.
Kurt Winningsted, 6543 Goodwin Lane. And I have the number 3 wetland behind my place there. And it showed that they're gonna be putting up some type of a retaining wall there. I'm curious how high that wall will be and how long that would be and what is the reason for it.
Okay. Mr. White, can you explain that?
The retaining wall is the lot next to that, what they're showing is the retaining wall going alongside the wetland. They're gonna bring the soil up, so the house isn't at the same level as the wetland, it'll be above it. I'm not sure how tall it is, I don't have that in front of me right now, but only a foot or two, that's what the contour lines would be showing. Or 2 or 4 feet, I mean.
I mean, is that so they can kind of level out for building the homes then?
So here's your wetland,
Yeah,
here's the retaining wall, here's where the new house will be.
so I get to look at a retaining wall out in my yard. One other thing that I was gonna mention, now I know you folks are sitting up here because you get voted in by the people. And when you're out campaigning, you say you're gonna try to do this and that for the people. And so I know to start with, there was 59 homes, now there's 39. I guess what I think would satisfy a lot of people if it got cut down to 18 homes, and that way it would fit in better with the surrounding area. And so I think you could make that choice for us folks tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name's Jim Long. I live at 25713 Goodwin Road. I missed other meetings because of health concerns, so I don't know what has been said before. I just want to reiterate that we have a neighborhood there that has a certain character to it, a unique character. It's a quiet, peaceful, older neighborhood. I think most of us that live in that neighborhood enjoy it very much. I think those of us that moved into that neighborhood moved in because that's the kind of neighborhood we wanted to be in. I don't think any of us foresaw that you're going to try to cram a high-density development right in the middle of this quiet, peaceful, unique neighborhood. It just doesn't fit. It's a bad fit. It's not so much that we are opposed to the woodlands being taken away, although that is unique. I'd like to see the city do something more constructive and beautiful with that project. However, if it's going to be developed, it should be developed in the character of the neighborhood, a unique neighborhood. If we wanted to live in a high-density neighborhood, we would move to the other side of Goodview, but we don't. And we want our neighborhood left alone, left the way it is. Some of the arguments that were brought up before, in my mind, are very weak. The fact that it's going to lower taxes. I have lived in Vadnais Heights. I have lived in White Bear Lake. I have lived in Lino Lakes. I now live in Wyoming. I've heard that argument at every one of these city councils, and it's never happened. Never have our taxes gone down because of developments come in. They always go up because we have more roads, sidewalks, whatever, parks, the whole bit. So to me, that's a very weak argument. One of the other arguments that I heard that was publicized was, well, we're gonna make an elderly development. And I think, you know, that I'm an elderly, look at me, I'm an old man. If elderly people don't want to do yard work, and that was the argument, they'd have smaller yards there. If elderly people nowadays don't want to do yard work, they move into townhouses in elderly projects or high rises or whatever. They don't buy houses with small yards. They don't want to do yard work anymore. So that to me is another lame argument. I'm an elderly. I like my nice big yard and quiet neighborhood and all the nice big yards around me. And the other thing, I'm a little disappointed that the city would even consider jamming this project right in the middle of this unique neighborhood. And that's you people, I assume, that first looked at this and thought it was viable. It's a poor decision on my part, or I believe, and it just simply does not fit. All the arguments for it that I've heard don't fit. I would like to see that this unique neighborhood stay the way it is. It's not a big fancy neighborhood, but it is a quiet, beautiful, unique neighborhood with reasonable sized yards. And if you were to develop that land, 18 houses, if there's 18 acres, 1 acre lots, I think people probably wouldn't fight that much. But 39 houses in that area, I ask you people, how'd you like that crammed in your backyard? And that, my yard doesn't border that, but I'm across the street from it. The traffic, just the number of homes in there, doesn't fit.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, thanks.
Appreciate it. Anyone else? Come on up.
Hi, I'm Carol Wurzba, 6528 Goodwin Lane. My concern is the groundwater versus the wetlands, and in relation to the, what Kurt said, the retaining wall, thank you. Once you do that, you start moving things and water changes and the way things run change. And that's my main concern is the water and then that, and also that many homes going in that area. We've been here for 20 years and we knew that when we moved in, eventually it would be developed. So that's not anything new. It's just a matter of retaining what's there as far as wetlands and groundwater and then how many units are being built there. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else?
Sean Wright, 6370 255th Street. Our property is adjacent to the property being developed, and I was gonna tie in with, and I don't know that I've met him, but I kinda like him,
Jim?
where he was talking about.
We all like Jim.
I actually read all the city codes this week, and I'm gonna recite one, which you're probably aware of, but section 4368 of site design says that planned unit development, PUD dwelling units should have a character, which I think I heard him say 7 times, and scale that relates to the heritage of the city, similar to the design standards of the residential districts. And I'm questioning how we're gonna do that when our property and the property next to us will have 3 homes stacked against it. So that sort of ties into my other question. I believe that this unknown, we don't know the size of these homes yet, but we know the size of the lots. So the unknown residential house sizes and style may affect the property values of the current residents. And I'm very concerned, and I'm not sure how we're addressing that as well. And lastly, this is more of a statement. I would actually like you to consider rejecting this PUD because there is too many homes being built on it. And in reading the submission here, there's 38 of 39 houses that have insufficient lot width for R3 zoning. There is 13 of 39 that have insufficient lot depth for that same zoning. 39 of 39 have insufficient side yard setbacks, illustrated by the concept building pads for the R3 zoning. And I think I will leave the rest for the people that are in the room. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Come on up. Did I see a hand?
Go ahead. Sure, gentlemen. All right.
Hi, my name is Rob Owens. I live at 25643 Goodwin Road. And yeah, a lot of what I wanted to say has already been said, but I'll just, as Chris had mentioned, you guys, we vote for you based on, how you're going to serve the community. And I'm the new kid on the block. I've been there 20 years. And our neighborhood is unique. There's everywhere in Wyoming, there's tons of farmland that has no trees on it that are great for development of this type. I'm not anti-development, but cramming 39 homes into that small area, destroying 600 trees, the wetlands that are already there are going to suffer. The aesthetic of the neighborhood is going to be ruined. And it's not so much that, but it's also our property values. And I'm sorry, guys, I don't buy the thing that our taxes going down. I will believe that when I see it, but and I've heard that before too. But to me, it's more the aesthetic of the neighborhood. The wildlife hasn't been talked about. You got 600 trees. And what value does that add? So you're taking a neighborhood and changing the entire characteristic of it when there's all kinds of places for that to fit. And 39 homes in that small of an area with lots, as the gentleman pointed out, that violate really those conditions of the setbacks and the sizes. So the issue that I have with it is because it seems to be we keep going down in size. I would also ask that you reject the proposal based on the amount of homes flat out until it's reproposed for a reasonable amount of homes. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'll try to be really brief. My name is Dan Carlson. I live at 6454 255th Street. I'd like to echo what a lot of these other people have said. I mean, you guys obviously know how we feel. In light of the things that John is saying here, insufficient width for the R3 zoning, I'm making the assumption that he did correct research. That is correct, right? That is correct. So then we'll move on to the things that I wrote down here. I tried to put them in order as best I could. We'll see. Starting with 2. Oh, you guys will love this. If I have 3 minutes, maybe I'll entertain you just a little bit.
I'll let you go a little bit further.
Okay, I appreciate it. I've been in situations where I've been in like an interview panel and they'll say, where are you from? And I'll say, Wyoming, Minnesota. And then you get a puzzled look like nobody knows what you're talking about. And my response to that is every time, if you don't know where I'm talking about, that's just how we like it. It's kind of a funny thing to say, but I feel like that lends itself to exclusivity, right? Everything that's important to me, I keep exclusive. That's why I lock my doors. Having said that, I also think you guys should reject this and let's keep this portion of what we can control exclusive, right? Whether that is reducing the lot size, I understand that's gonna get developed and I'm totally fine with that. I guess I'd rather have a realistic number within what we set out for PUD parameters versus what they have proposed. I'll leave you guys with this. I am a father of 4 daughters. I'm here right now and I'm not dealing with one of them with strep throat, who's on the mend, she's doing great. I'm not dealing with one of them that's potty training. That's all falling on my wife right now. Because I'm here trying to make sure that you guys are going to do the right thing for the people of Wyoming, okay? I understand you guys probably fully understand that. And it's one of those things where in this situation, I hope you guys do the right thing. I just feel at this point in my life, I get a little bit tired of advocating for people that don't advocate for us. And I don't want that to be you guys. But once again, somebody mentioned it already, 2024 is coming quickly and you guys are elected. So I hope you guys do the right thing and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? My whole road is coming in tonight, so welcome.
We're here.
Where were you before? Good to see you.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
So Blair Ferguson, 25679 Granford Avenue, just down the road from here. And you know what, I've got more of a question first. And usually you're supposed to ask the question that you know the answer to, and I don't. What are the proposals and plans for septic or sewer on in this development? With a lot so small, like it's been mentioned, and the research that's been done, and what little I know being a licensed contractor in the state of Minnesota, how much room is there for a septic system? Or are we gonna be forced city sewer and water?
So I'll let Mr. Weck, I'll answer part of it if you're all right with that. So back in 2015, when we redid Goodview, 2017, when we did redid Goodview, they stubbed water in, right? And so that particular development is going to be city sewer and water. I will let Fred now answer the second part of it.
So for anyone else in the neighborhood being forced to hook up to city sewer and water, first, either the people in the neighborhood would have to petition to have city sewer and water put through, or everyone's septic system would have to be failing and the MPCA would order the city to put sewer and water through. Now, like I said, that once sewer and water goes through your development, you have 5 years per the early annexation agreement to hook up to city sewer and water. So once the pipe goes past, you don't have to hook up right away. You have to hook up within 5 years though.
Are there plans in our neighborhood for the existing residents near this development for anything like that? Because I'd like to sell before any of that's announced.
Is anyone here gonna petition to have city sewer and water put on their lot?
That's in the current development with the 1.5 acre lots.
You guys would have to petition.
Yep, so you and everybody around would have to be able to come up with a petition saying, yes, we really want that sewer water coming in, and I don't see anybody doing that.
So thank you. That's the first good news I've heard so far.
Yeah.
I do have to agree with everyone else that's spoken though, and I don't need to repeat it. And I would wish that you reject this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Kathy Wright, 6370 255th Street in Wyoming. And my children, our backyard backs up to this land, and my children played on that land all the time, and so I also have been out on that land, and I knew the people who lived in the home off of Goodview that backs up to there, and they had a lot of stuff. And some of the stuff that I know they had were refrigerators and bathtubs and a lot of other debris back in there. And I'm wondering if maybe the Pollution Control Agency needs to take a look at the land first to make sure that it really is okay. I know it used to be a farm. It was a pig farm. That's why we have trees instead of fields. But there's a silo out there, and I know there used to be uncapped wells. I think they've been capped, but I just feel like maybe the Pollution Control Agency should take a look at all of it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, last chance. Anybody else? Something that has not been said yet or brought up? Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and move on to council questions and comments. With that being said, I think, trying to decide if it's probably better if Mr. Wett kind of goes through again, what is a CUP and a PUD? So I think that's probably important that we state what that is before we continue.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I think Mr. Wright talked about the size of the lots and a couple other people. So in an R3 zoning, there's minimum lot sizes, lot width, lot area, and lot depth. A plan unit development allows them to change those dimensions, but not have any extra lots while they're doing it. So they could have, I'm just gonna pull numbers, 20 lots that all meet the R3 requirements, or they could have 20 lots that don't meet the R3 requirements, but still are viable lots and still in the same area. The trade-off for the smaller lot size, the smaller road area is basically the more road frontage, the more expensive it is for each lot for the builder to build. So you have more pavement, you have more pipes. That lot width increases the cost of the lots themselves. So that's part of the reason why they do that. But I guess the flip side of it is they don't get any extra lots by doing it. So if we were to look at this development, there's a large outlot that's used as green space. They could take all of that outlot area, distribute that amongst all the lots that they already have, the 39 lots. They could end up with all 39 lots complying with the R3 requirements, but now we don't have that protected green space that no one can build on. And that's what that green space is for. I hope that kind of explains some of that and the reasons why they do that.
Okay. I'm gonna have council, we'll start with council asking any questions and then we'll go from there. Member Luker.
Mr. Lunan, I'm wondering if you can clarify for us kind of the parameters by which we decide on this issue tonight. And kind of really what the heart of the question is tonight.
So ultimately, what we have before council is a land use application, specifically a application for conditional use permit to grant the PUD. City ordinance for R3 developments says that a PUD is a permitted conditional use if the conditions are met. In your packet, you have a staff memo that was put together and lays out the conditions that the city should be looking at. In our role here tonight as a city council, you're not making law, you're applying the law that you've already made to the facts, which is the application, and reviewing that application in consideration of our current city ordinances. It's not a time when we can change those city ordinances because the applicant is entitled to those ordinances that they know were in place at the time they submit the application. So as we're looking at that, the determination and the processes it went through is it went to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission issued to the council a recommendation, and the recommendation is for approval. The Planning Commission, similar to what you're going to do here tonight, is reviewing and applying these ordinances. For the conditional use permit, it's within the staff memo, it's section 40.112, and for the PUD, it's also within the staff memo. Those conditions are section 40.364. And again, this was all in the memo. It was provided for the December meeting. It's provided to you here again tonight. The recommendation is approval from the Planning Commission. However, the Planning Commission is simply an advisory body to the City Council. City Council gets to make the ultimate decision. Planning Commission has made their findings and their reasoning why they think approval is appropriate. You are not bound by those findings. If the council determines that they think that the conditions on the CUP or the conditions for the PUD have not been met as they currently exist in our city ordinances, then you can recommend denial. If the city is going to recommend denial, they must state their reason, their findings of fact as to why the applicant has not met the city criteria. Now, unfortunately, certainly we've heard people here who are upset about the application, they're upset about the development that's being proposed, but public dissent is not sufficient reason to deny a valid application. The denial has to be based on our city ordinances, based on those conditional use permits, ordinances, and those PUD requirements. Council's entitled to make its findings as to why those have not been met. Tonight here, again, the recommendation is for approval. It's a majority vote. If the council votes against approval, we will need to establish either tonight or we have until the next meeting, the findings as to why denial is appropriate here as opposed to approval. But ultimately, at the end of the day, in the position that you're sitting in, like I said at the December meeting, you're sitting in your role as a quasi-judicial official, which means you are essentially acting as a judge, applying the ordinances to the facts of the application and determining whether that has been met. If we don't like what our ordinances allow, we have to go back and change the ordinances, but we can't do that with this application because it's before the council here tonight. So those findings need to be based on ordinance and as to whether or not those criteria have been met. That was a long answer, but I hope it laid it out pretty clear for you.
Okay, so to summarize, we have a set of rules on the books. We have to determine whether or not this proposal meets those rules.
Correct.
If it does, there's not a lot of subjectivity. It's based on what's on the books, right? So if it meets the criteria, we are opening ourselves to legal issues if we do not approve it, assuming that it meets the criteria.
Certainly. In your role as council here tonight in evaluating this application or any other land use application, applicant or members can challenge whether or not the criteria has been properly applied and the finding of facts are sufficient. And the way that they challenge that is through the court, through litigation.
Okay. Mr. Weck, do you feel like the conditions have been met?
Yes, ma'am. According to staff report and going through them, again, as Mr. Lunan said, there are some dissent, but it's not, doesn't violate our ordinance.
Okay, it's within the framework of what's been determined to be our code,
Yes.
ordinances, et cetera. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Onstead.
I'm looking at the a map of the surrounding area. Get a mic on here. Looking at a map of the surrounding area, and I know that this is zoned differently than the neighborhood across the street. Though it's across Goodview, it's a similar zoning.
Correct.
Can you explain why that area was zoned differently?
In 2005, before the annexation agreement, in order to annexation, the property owners of this parcel asked to be annexed into the Wyoming early to allow them to develop the land. They were annexed into Wyoming. They were rezoned to the R3 zoning at that time. They had the original Katie's Glen plan, which had a lot more lots on it. The economy went bad. They withdrew their application, and they're sat for the past 12 years or so. And here we are back with the R3 zoning that has been during that whole time with a revised Katie's Glen.
I think the mayor stated this earlier, but I was curious as to the average lot size of the area around it. It sounds like it's about 1.5 acres.
On the east side of Goodview Avenue, that was all old township. The developed areas are 1 acre minimum lot size. There are some larger and smaller lots. The Hawk Meadows development is a planned unit development. Those are over 2 acres for the most part. But generally speaking, they're 1 acres to 2 to 3 acres, unless you've got one of the undeveloped parcels that are 5, 10 or so.
And the wetland area is kind of included in the lot?
It is. area, even though it's not part of the lot? It's included in the total lot area, yes.
Okay.
But it's not a part of the, but it's not a part of the buildable area, so when they're doing those calculations for figuring out how many lots they can have, that's not included as that buildable lot area.
Yeah, because I was looking at, it looks like it's about a quarter acre, 0.26 acres per lot. But when you include that, it gets much larger, it's closer to 0.4 of an acre, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you. Member Schilling?
The one I missed the first time. I have read through this. I read through this after the meeting. I can't find anything in it to allow me to say no to this. I actually live across the street on the west side of Goodview. I have the smallest lot in our development. I view this as exactly the same as what's across the street. Now, everybody that's come forward today, I completely understand all of it. I don't disagree with any of your arguments. The problem I have is, again, this is our rules, this is our ordinances. So essentially, what you're asking us to do is tell the owner of this property that he can't use the property what it's allowed to be used for. And that's very hard for us to do, and that can be legally challenged. These are never fun. In the 4 years I've been on this council to date, I think every single development that has gone in this community has been fought tooth and nail by the people that live right next door to it. Unfortunately, it is the nature of what we do. We are a growing community in a state. We're going to continue to grow. Wyoming is going to get more dense as we use up more land. Do I like that as a fact? No, but if it's allowed, he owns the property, it meets our requirements. There's just really nothing, in my opinion, that we can do to stop him from doing it. I view it as two neighborhoods. You got one that's all of yours on the east side of Goodview, and then the west side of Goodview matches exactly what's going in here, unfortunately, for you folks. So I have read through this over and over and over. I actually went back and watched the meeting. I don't really see anything we can do at this point. I'm just going to leave it at that. So.
All right. Thank you, Member Schilling. And Member Yeager.
I do have one question. Can this land be developed to comply with R3 lot sizes without a PUD?
Potentially, but it would probably end up with larger street area to get that road frontage. It might end up in the cul-de-sac. It could end up with some storm or wetland impacts, potentially.
Okay. As a statement, this is what I did New Year's Eve. I got in my little car twice and drove all around Katie's Glen, up Goodview, got out, walked around the whole bit. And if I were to be asked to come up with findings of fact, I would say that there are 3 CUP standards that this development does not meet. Number 3, about the use will be sufficiently compatible or separated by distance or screening from adjacent development or land so that existing development will not be depreciated in value and there will be no deterrence to the development of vacant land. Okay, since the last meeting, I looked at the maps again. I stopped at Goodwin Lane. I came back a second time with my husband and we walked around and drove around town, and I was looking specifically at the transition between developments. You know, are they abrupt transitions? Are they more gentle transitions? For example, between Summer Fields and the ones across the street, there were like, it's a more gentle thing. There are 2 big lots. Oh, okay. Sorry. There are 2 big lots that border to the development across the street with that all had bigger lots. When I look at it, I'm seeing a really abrupt transition at Goodview Lane and also the significantly smaller lots bordering on the much larger lots of 258th Street. Given the minimum lot size of 8,775 square feet, being surrounded on 3 sides by 1-acre lots, and an ordinance that does not require screening between residential uses, I don't think there is sufficient separation by distance or screening from the adjacent development, and therefore there is a very real possibility of depreciation in the value of adjacent properties. I also don't think this makes satisfy requirements number 4, that the structure and site shall have an appearance that will not have an adverse effect upon the adjacent properties. While this standard, I think, could be met with adequate screening, the ordinance does not require it, so I don't think there would be adequate screening. In fact, as I got out at the cul-de-sac on Goodview, and I looked to my left, I could see the houses bordering on this property. And as we drove around and saw that once all the trees are gone, you're going to be looking at that. And you're just going to be looking at the whole thing. So I don't think, because there will not be adequate screening, the ordinance will not, it does not meet that standard. I also don't think it meets standard number 7, that the use will be located, designed, maintained, and operated to be compatible with the existing and or intended character of the zoning district in which it is located. This property is zoned R3, but according to the data that was on my desk when I got here, 83% of those lots don't make an R3 requirement of 15,000 square feet. And I find that, I'm told we need, there's flexibility. I find that beyond flexible. To me, why have zoning requirements if you're gonna zone it R3, say we're gonna have 15,000 square feet and you're not gonna follow it, and 80% and only less than 20% follow it. Why have zoning? I asked to have this compared to the Thornbeck. At least in Thornbeck, while many of the lots do not make 15,000 square feet, in fact, 54% of them are less than 15,000 square feet. That's a lot more than 20. So if I were to vote no, those are my findings of fact.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Weck, do you have any answers back with that?
I think part of it, the sufficiently compatible, what staff is looking at, it's a residential use adjacent to another residential use. A lot of the conditional use permit standards are more geared towards a commercial use adjacent to another commercial use or another residential use. It's not perfect when it comes to residential next to residential. And I think in some of those cases, it's in the eyes of the beholder. For our screening requirements, the screening requirements for the commercial is for trees, it's leaf-on conditions during the summer. They could have a mix of evergreens and deciduous. They could have all deciduous. They could have all evergreens. Our ordinance allows any one of those combinations. Some of the other screening requirements could be a berm or a fence. Would be other ways of doing it. A lot of things have been said. If you got specific questions you want to come back to me with, I can try to answer those.
Member Yeager, do you have any other specific questions?
No, that's basically it.
Okay. All right. Now it's my turn. And I have to start off by saying this in all transparency because that's what we are. It's not quite in my neighborhood, but it is in my neighborhood, right? What will develop there, my view will not change because I'll have the same view. With that being said, here's some issues that I have and some questions that I need answered. I will let everybody know that I did talk with the developer. I'm one of those people that see if we can meet in the middle somewhere, right? Because I think everybody in this room, almost everybody in this room, except for a few, knew that that property was for sale and eventually that it would be developed. I think many of us would have been led to believe that a developer would not come in and think that 54 lots or 39 lots or whatever it is would fit into that neighborhood, right? That's what most of us would think. So I did have a conversation with the developer. It was interesting what he had to say. As a person who believes people should make money, can make money how they need to, I was surprised at what it cost to put in a development. The road alone, they figure, is $1.4 million for a road. I find that astronomical. I had confirmed that with another builder developer that I know. There's a lot that goes into it. And so many of you know that I have fought with the state of Minnesota the last 2 years for them not to take away from the city's planned unit development. That's what this is, a planned unit development. It's in our comp plan, which is why we do comp plans. They are important for our city because if you look at the development such as Thornbeck Ponds, such as Summer Fields, those are developments that went into basically a farmland. right? A farmland. There weren't a lot of other houses that were in the same thing. They weren't put in right in the middle of a development. So I had to do a little more digging. I had to understand a few more things. So, Fred, I now have some questions for you. First one, how long has it been since we've made any changes to the CIP or the PUD and the ordinances in what the Planning Commission looks at? Do you know how long it's been?
2009 was when we adopted the zoning ordinance.
Okay.
A lot of the rules that are in the zoning ordinance were also in the prior city and township ordinances.
Okay, and so that was 13 years ago. 13 years ago. And I'm thinking that the people that were before us probably didn't think much about, here's a piece of property, here's a development, and there's another one that can go in here, and not thinking that what it could be, right? A PUD and planning board. Okay.
Right.
So we haven't had any changes in 2009. As Mr. Lunan stated, we are now not allowed to make any changes to the ordinances with this property because it's already before us, correct?
Correct. Anybody that would submit an application before a change is approved is subject to the previous ordinance.
Okay. So that makes it very difficult for us up here to deny it. But I'm going to make a few statements on top of that. We have a comp plan for a reason. We just updated it. It took 5 years. It was a long process. I was there for most of it. It took 5 years. So when we look at the comp plan, and I pulled this up that was approved, there's a couple things I want to bring up. Significant wetland protection. So this is coming from the comprehensive plan. And what it reads is that the fewest significant trees and least amount of forest should be lost or damaged. The woodland preservation regulation contains in the city code will be enforced. So I want to understand, because we have actually 2 different ordinances in here, right? And the one that's being applied to it, from what I'm reading, is that this is a minimum. We're using the minimum, meaning that if this was a farm field, then you would have to put in X amount of trees. When this is actually, from my understanding, and let me, from all my notes, try to read this. Okay, so a minimum number of trees, this is what they're planning for right now, which is exclusive of classified wetlands, a minimum of 1 overstay tree and 2 understory trees per 1/10 acre must be provided. That's what's in the report, correct?
Correct.
Is that's what it is? Okay. So, and that's in section 40555 landscaping regulations, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So if I go to section 4556, woodland preservation regulations, the purpose of this section is to govern the preservation and protection of trees and woodlands within the city of Wyoming. The city recognizes the values of trees and woodlands for absorbing air pollution, reducing noise, providing shade, providing wildlife habitat, providing visual amenity, and preventing soil erosion and siltation. This section is adopted during the development, occurs in a manner that protects and preserves these valuable resources. So if I go further into that and I go to H and it says significant woodland, it reads a group or cluster of, and I'm going to crucify these words and I'm sorry, coniferous and or deciferous trees. However,
And deciduous.
there we go, thank you. That crown over occupying 15,000 or more square feet of property and is comprised of the trees, it goes on and on with that. Significant trees, they say, which are healthy ones. So would you not say that actually this property is of significant woodlands based on how many trees there are, based on the 15,000 or more square feet of property?
Yeah, can you repeat the question?
Yeah.
Because there's more to it than just what your question was.
So what I'm reading here in the notes from WSB, who reviewed this, right? WSB did that. They're saying landscaping and woodland preservation. It says that the applicant submitted a landscaping plan that outlines existing trees and shrubs as well as proposed landscaping features. In general, all subdivisions and plan unit developments must contain a minimum of 1, and then it goes into what the minimum would be. If you look at the comp plan and you read significant woodland protection, it's different than what we're stating in here of what that piece of property is.
So the comp plan is our guide. The ordinance is actually how we're gonna put that guide into use. In the woodland preservation part of the ordinance, we also have permitted tree removals. So removal of existing significant trees. The city recognizes that certain amounts of tree removal is an inevitable consequence of the urban development process and therefore will likely result in the removal of some significant trees. Consequently, the city requires that significant tree removal beyond the following thresholds shall require reforestation or restitution as described in section 40-554. So where they're allowed to remove trees, the trees can be removed within 15 feet of the face of the foundation of buildings, required parking areas, driveways, well areas, drain fields, essential utility areas, essential drainage ways, easements, and right-of-ways. And that is what their tree preservation plan does. It shows where they're allowed to take away trees. So those are the permitted tree removals, and where they're not allowed to take away trees. So the ones that they're not allowed to take away, they have to replace those, and they have to replace those or end up with a rate of 1 overstory tree per 1/10 of an acre, or 10 trees per acre, and two understory or 20 understory trees per acre. So that's what they try to do with the plan. Again, it is a lot of trees being removed, but it's the number of trees that they can do based on what their plan is. One of the other parts of the plan is to reduce significant tree impacts. They have 2 roads they have to connect to, the Goodwin Lane on the east side and Goodview Road or Avenue on the west side. To connect those 2 is a pretty direct path. They can't go through the wetlands already there, so there's a direct path to go to that. They had, on one of their initial plans, another cul-de-sac that went up to the north side that added them more lots that would have impacted even more trees in that area. Staff talked to them, and we got to where we're at right now with the one connection, and as minimal of an impact as we could with what's existing on the site.
Okay, so I guess a lot of words, right? So between the 2 of us, we're gonna do a lot of words.
Yeah.
So if I look at the ordinances that are here, the description of significant woodlands actually describes this property, right?
It does.
Okay, so why are we not using, so WSB looks at this, they don't live in our community, no offense, Paul. So they don't live in our community, did they walk the property, did they go and see what was actually there? My thought is probably not, they probably did the GIS like we did, right?
They actually looked at the tree inventory, which the developer went through and actually inventoried all the trees, how big they are, what type of tree, and whether it's a good tree or if it's diseased or if it's actually a dead tree or on its way out.
Yep, okay. But what I'm trying to get at is, if it actually falls within the significant woodland description, and it's being approved as it is in the minimum requirement, right? So therefore, it's not meeting one of the standards that is set forth.
Again, I think that's gonna be a subjective one.
Okay.
In the ordinance, we say we expect there's gonna be some impacts. Otherwise, the only places that we would be doing any development would be the old farmers' fields.
Okay. And can we all agree that subjective, so what they may look at and see beautiful trees, beautiful whatever, right? And that it's going to impact them. But to, again, Paul, I'm not picking on you, but to WSB, they don't know that, right? They don't live there. So they don't understand what that subjective part is. That semantic of words, but.
I would agree. I think it's a beautiful forest myself.
Yeah,
But
okay.
but again, WSB and the city needs to address those standards with what we have.
Yeah, okay. So, when we write policy and procedures, and everybody who works who writes policy and procedures, to me, it seems like this is not clear, right? It's just not clear language. So I can see how the neighbors are sitting there going, doesn't meet all of this, right? I think as a council, we can all agree with that, right? Doesn't meet that. My other thing is this PUD, which again, I totally believe in, is different than any other thing we have done in this city. It's either farmland with some trees, it's either, I mean, it's doesn't have the kind of, it's not dropped right into the middle of another development. We don't have any others that are like that with trees all the way around it, lots all the way around it. So I would like to see, if we have no choice but to approve this, because it's already written and it follows certain things, we have no other choice. I would like to see Planning Commission take a look at this, because I think there's, I looked on the GIS, I believe there's 3 other lots that are similar to this without the wetlands that could be developed.
If I may, Mayor?
Yeah?
The developer doesn't own those other 3 lots.
You're correct. You're correct. Totally understand that. So, but what I would like to see is Planning Commission actually take another look at this. And now that the comp plan is done, I will say this, if the comp plan is only, used as a guide to work with the ordinances, then sometimes I wonder why some of this is in here. And I sat through 5 years of it too, so I get it. You know, we have protect significant woodlands in our comp plan. We have, the plan provides for protection of wetlands, floodplains, and significant woodlands. Vision, thriving and inviting communities that preserve our small town feel and natural resources. I am sorry to the neighbors here right now. As a mayor, I have failed you for not looking more at that comp plan to see what was going in there, right? What I can do now is I can suggest Planning Commission look over these again. Take a look over these again and see if there needs to be any changes or any better language that needs to go into it, right? Unfortunately, we can't do anything about this. Our hands are tied from previous councils. I sat in your position years ago where we are elected, and I agree with the gentleman who said we are elected for the people. The unfortunate part is we are bound by rules in the ordinances that right now we can't change. And I will speak in girl mayor terms, that makes me really sad that we can't do that. So I'm hoping we can look at that. Okay, I do have another question, Fred. You state that in the previous, at the last meeting, that there's a proposed wetland impact that still needs approval and explains that it hasn't been done yet. Has that been done? Has it come through yet?
They've applied, but they haven't, the decision hasn't been made yet.
Okay, so can we still approve this if that hasn't been, I'm asking the attorney on that?
It's one of the conditions that does get approved.
It's one of the conditions, okay.
I just want to emphasize, and it is a conditional use permit, there's conditions that have been imposed. I think at the last meeting, someone had asked if there can be additional conditions, there can if they're related. Council's entitled to make its decision in applying the ordinances. I don't want you to say that you have to, but if you look at it, the recommendation from planning is approval, but ultimately, council is its own arbiter, is its own decision maker in this instance. So I do want to emphasize on that. Sure. That being said, we do have a deadline within which we have to act. And so there has to be some sort of decision that's made. I don't necessarily know what the deadline is this evening. I think Commissioner
Isn't
Weck
this,
knows
didn't we
better,
extend it?
I'll tell you in a couple seconds. It's in the letter that it's in the packet.
March 1st, I believe.
What'd you say it was?
I thought I saw something about March 1st.
That sounds about right.
Because you redid the application for the 60 days?
Yes, March 1st.
Okay, March 1st, okay.
But the council does have to take some sort of action before that date if it wants to make a decision.
Okay, all right. Okay, so that hasn't been through yet. The other thing is the Chisago Lakes Forest Lake Watershed District. Is that the same thing that we're talking about here? Have they given approval?
That's
another condition?
It's a different condition, it's a different process and a different impact. But they are one of the permitting bodies.
Okay, perfect, okay. So that's really, I guess that's all my questions, that's all my statement. I have thought long and hard on this. I've went out and looked at land. I have visited with neighbors. I have talked to developers. I have talked to builders. It's amazing what you learn and what you hope that you will eventually be able to change. I don't know how everybody else is going to vote. We're going to do a roll call. We'll see where it goes from there. But I will say that everybody up here does the best they can representing our residents. And one of the things as mayor that I can't do is subject all the other residents of this city to a lawsuit. Because that affects everybody. And I've always made my votes based on what's best for the city as a whole. And this one tears me apart. I haven't slept in a week. So I'm just saying that. All right. I am going to, if there are no other questions or comments, I am going to,
Madam Mayor?
yeah, sorry.
I need a motion to take it from the table before you do anything.
We did.
Did you?
We
Oh,
did.
I'm sorry,
Yep.
I missed that.
We
I'm
did.
sorry.
Good. It's okay, we did that. Tom kept us kind of going with that. Okay, so we need a motion to, and remember, I will do roll call. We need a motion to approve Resolution 22-112-129, a resolution approving a conditional use permit for the master plan of the planned unit development Katie's Glen. I will read the names, please, for your votes.
Do we need a motion?
Oh, we need a motion. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Member Schilling makes the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Member Luger. All right, roll call, please. Member Luger.
Aye. Not thrilled, but aye.
Okay. Member Onstad.
Nay.
Member Schilling.
Aye.
Member Yeager.
Nay. For the reasons previously stated.
And I will vote aye only because I cannot subject our city to a lawsuit. So I will vote yes with a very heavy heart. I'm sorry. We can take a break if anybody would like to get up and leave at this point in time, or you can all stay. We have
one
a-
more resolution.
We do have one more resolution on the Katie's Glen.
Oh, we do,
so if you
okay.
can-
It's, yeah, we'll just take a second. They're giving money and plan for the, so they're doing money in lieu of a park, because they feel it's close to Goodview.
And partially a trail.
In a trail, yeah, in a trail. The park, oh, no, that,
Yeah.
talk to this guy who's now on the. We can't, unfortunately.
Are we gonna do a few minutes break?
Yeah, let's just take a 5-minute break, please.
Did your kids change in the last couple minutes?
Yeah.